Hi, I'm Raju Reddy, and I'm a BITS graduate and also currently the chairman of BITSA International.
I'm Sanjay Nath, co-founder and managing partner at Blume Ventures, which is an early stage tech seed fund.
Vision for BITS Park is to build BITS into one of the top 3 schools for entrepreneurship in Asia. And we came up with sort of 3 main legs for BITS Park. And one is the BITS Angels, the Spark Angels, and this is all about really funding some of these promising startups that are coming out of the BITSian alumni community. And one is the Spark Mentors, because oftentimes funding is really not the end all by any means, and you need good mentorship to build some of these young companies into great companies of tomorrow. And the third is the Spark Network. Basically, this is where we Spark Connect, the network of alums and even students that are actively involved, where we share, inspire, hopefully, and sort of create the networking opportunity. Over the last 2 years, this has grown substantially. I mean, from really just an idea to now several companies getting funded, and there's a lot of entrepreneurial activity in the BITSian alumni community today.
Blume is also in a sense a startup, only about 3 or 4 years old. But I think if you look at where startups came from, the founders, I think about 5 to 10 years ago, and Raju would also agree that many of them worked outside for corporate India or America, and were serial entrepreneurs and then came. I think now what's interesting is the average age and the fact that these ideas are coming from campus itself. I think that's huge. One of the other testaments is, if you look at a company like Grey Orange, which is one of our proud, both for Blume and also for the BITS Park Angels. It's really interesting. I think the testimony is when they go to campus, I think they had about 100 or 150 applicants apply for jobs. Typically, I think the mood and the prospect of joining a startup itself is increased. And I think the fact that people are actually applying to startups as jobs rank up right there with the likes of the Googles and the Facebook.
The overall entrepreneurship climate in India, I think, is very encouraging. While BITS may be at the forefront of that amongst a few other colleges, along with a few other colleges, it's certainly not the only one. And so one of my sort of personal areas of big interest, and this certainly applies to BITSian entrepreneurs or others coming from India, is this sort of India to global product companies. I believe sometime by the turn of this decade, so over the next 5 years, we'll see a handful of such companies building products for the global market, such as Grey Orange, and several others that will hit $1 billion, exit.
We find people focus sometimes too much on funding, right? And you often get the question, how is your company doing? And let's say we got Series A funding, and we like to think that funding is not an end; it's just a sort of means to an end. In the Valley, we see, we've got a good friend Abhinav, who is very active in the NVCA. They spend a lot of time on customer discovery, right? And that can happen sometimes very creatively, even before you've quit your job and you think you have an idea. I think the best startups are the ones that have already thought of a problem, have already validated a market in the sense. So by the time they hit the market, you don't need $1 million in funding. You can even start with 100 and 200. So, but obviously funding is a challenge. So I think funding is only one thing. But I think if you spend more time on customer discovery, sometimes which may not require funding, you can go further.
Redbus obviously has been a phenomenal success story overall for India in the internet, the consumer internet space. And the interesting thing is, much like I don't think the factors that determine the success of a company are that different from here in India versus anywhere else in the world, for that matter, right? There are 2 main things. One, the market that they're going after. How large is that, and is that a growing market? And then it's really coming down to the quality of the team that we have. And I just met a couple of these entrepreneurs that came out of BITS Hyderabad campus the other day, and they're all. And one of them just graduated in 2013, just last year. The other one graduated, I think, in 2011. But anyway, they're already on their second company. The first one didn't work out. Mauka that they did, and now they're in a different area called Cab Clay, and yeah, I was amazed by sort of their tenacity and just trying to be entrepreneurs, and I mean it is impressive. So in a way, hopefully they have learned a lot of things. So back to the question, what are they doing different? So it's sort of learning from your mistakes, and and that's what I was asking the entrepreneur. Well, what are the big lessons that you learned from your first company that didn't pan out? And so they were kind of talking about that. So that ability. So first, having a big vision, going after a large market, and then being able to adapt quickly enough, and so learning from those. Yeah. I mean, the Bitsian day that you talked about is just such a simple but so powerful an idea, right? And a lot of my other friends from other colleges, not just IITs, NITs, and others, have actually been asking about, somewhat intrigued by this. I mean, just one day in a year, everybody wears some Bitsian shirt, a cap, or whatever, and shows up at work. And it's amazing how many Bitsians discovered that there are other colleagues in their offices that are also Bitsian that they didn't know about. And I think part of it, at least in Pilani, I know where most of the BITS alums come from, having been somewhat in a secluded place, I suppose, that made a lot of difference, that brought us together. And I would also say the education system in many ways, it's much more broad-based. I mean, at least in my time, and probably Sanjay's time, yes, we had to take a lot of humanities classes, right? And in fact, engineering was not even certain when I got in. And it's only at the end of my third year. At that time, we had a 5-year engineering program. Third year, would I be assigned engineering, my particular curriculum? So I think sort of growing up in that sort of little desert town, and then having these sort of different activities that bring us together has done a lot.
The campus is residential. You would like to think that if you look at US undergrad, the fact that even if somebody went, let's say, to they always talk about the undergrad as alum because you've developed relationships there. If you're a day school, you're actually going there, coming back, you're at home, with your family. I think that's a big thing. You're literally building relationships over 4 years. The second, I think, I think you're also right. The fact that it is a very broad-minded American, sort of with the MIT system. Just for example, I'm not a morning person, so I didn't take morning classes. Now, where do you have the flexibility to do that? So it was very broad-based, where I think the fact that the first 2 years you're discovering yourself, you find your foundation, then you come together.
I guess as Bitsians, we are very privileged, very fortunate in many ways. We represent the top 0.1% of the country, if not a small proportion. So while we go on pursuing and building our careers, also think about what can you do to make the world around you a better place, because personally also I find that to be very enriching. And I've said this a few times, it's not like I'm parting with my wisdom when I'm mentoring people. I gain a lot. I've gained much more from Phanindra Sama than he perhaps gained from me with the Red Bus. And same thing with Samay at Grey Orange, or Abhishek with Garpe and others. So keep that in mind. Again, it's not about giving as much, but you gain a lot when you participate, when you volunteer your time and do things.
In one sense, it's competitive pride and spirit, to be a proud Bitsian. But also, if you think of Stanford today, something like that, which is like a gold standard in Silicon Valley, I think it's also great for other universities to, you call it learn, emulate, and we for us to learn from them to learn from us.